Hello, Magnify friends. This is Michelle Torsak, Executive Director of Content for Deseret Book, and I'm thrilled to be with you today to have a conversation we hope can alleviate some of the pain and worry we feel when someone we love, especially a child, takes a different path that leads them away from the church. And no matter your family circumstances, we think it's a conversation that matters in our efforts to be peacemakers and lifters. As we thought about who to bring in for this conversation, the first name that came to mind was Mindy Brown. She's a Magnify regular, and when she shares, we lean in to listen because she has a gift for pointing us to something deeper and more expansive. She's a gospel thought leader and the author of Eve and Adam, and next spring, she's publishing a new book titled An Endowment of Love, Embracing Christ's Covenant Way of Living and Loving. She's the perfect person to lead this important conversation. Welcome to the podcast, Mindy.
Oh, thanks, Michelle. You're so kind. I'm happy to be here with you.
We really did. As we considered all the people that we wanted to learn from on this, we thought of you. You just have a great way of just serving up thoughts and ideas that we can kind of take and mold to our circumstances in our lives.
Oh, thanks.
This topic, this hit home for me. We did an event called Time Out for Women. We did a 20th anniversary tour. You were part of that event. And at every event, we opened it up for questions. And one of the questions that we received more than any other was some form of, my child, my spouse, but particularly it was soft with children, has left the church, and I'm devastated. And what does this mean? And I won't see him. And you could feel and hear the anxiety and the worry and the anguish. Mm-hmm. And you're familiar with the painful feelings of a child leaving the church. Why do you think that this can be so painful and fraught?
Yeah, I do think it's so complicated, and it is so personal to me. I kind of worked through a lot of this about 6 or 7 years ago with our youngest daughter. And I think there's definitely a paradox and tension that we feel between this messaging that, now is the time, you get with it or it's going to be too late. And any sort of too late talk is so unnerving to mothers, especially, I think, where we put every ounce of our heart and love into the children that we adore, whether they're ours by birth or not. We just love them and want what's best for them. And so when we hear that angle on it, it just is devastating to us. It's scary. Really, it's scary. It's fearful, I think. But at the same time, we know there's something about eternal progression, because why would we have temples if we don't believe in eternal progression? Of course we do. Of course we do. And so many beautiful things have been said about that. But there is this pull, because depending on any given day and who you might be listening to, it kind of dances on both sides of that line. And so it's a complicated tension to wrestle with and to hold both. It's really a hold both circumstance that can be difficult. So
Can we find peace?
I think we absolutely can. To be totally candid and honest, I think in my family, we have found that peace very, very much, 100% even. I can say I'm truly at peace with the situation. I think the Lord holds every one of his precious children in his hands, and they're more his than mine. And if I know it matters this much to me, it matters even more to him. And I can really trust that he's got her. He's got all of our loved ones. It's going to be okay.
There was a conference talk from April 2023. Now, this is how much it really impacted me. I mean, the fact that I can remember it, a year and a half later. But it was by Elder Schmutz. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. But the title of the talk was Trusting in the Doctrine of Christ.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to talk about a little bit. What are the doctrines and teachings that you are trusting?
Well, I think, for one, eternal progression, and that perfection is something that is eventual. It's not immediate. It's not something we can do on our own. It absolutely requires the Lord, and it's an eternal experience. And that one of my favorite statements about that was Elder Tad R. Collister in an outstanding BYU devotional that I have referred back to so many times called Our Identity and Our Destiny. He said that perfection is a quest on both sides of the veil. Mm-hmm. And I think that can really give us peace, that we can zoom out and see the bigger picture and then zoom back in and see what the next right step is, right? And so I think that's huge. I think the idea that God's in charge and we're his stewards. To me, I think repeatedly about Jacob 5, which is like the big, long vineyard story. And I have come to absolutely love that story. It's my favorite chapter in the Book of Mormon, I would say, because I think the length and repetitiveness of it is actually the message, that the Lord of the vineyard is 100% dedicated to doing everything it's going to take and be patient. I don't think God is scared or worried. I think he's patient. And that's a big difference than our mortal perspective. I think our perspective skews things because we're just trapped in this kind of constrained, confined, time-bound existence right now. And it's harder for us to see the bigger picture. But I do think the grand project is so much bigger and grander and greater than we can really wrap our heads around right now. And everything I study and learn points to that, whether it's on this specific topic or not. And it just is a constant reminder to me that the big picture is much bigger than I can see, and it really is going to be okay.
I just love that thought of the length of Jacob 5 is the message.
That's what I really think. A few years ago, I really dug into that because I felt like there's something here for me as a mother to this child that I adore, completely adore, and am a little concerned about some of the choices. And the more I studied, the more I thought, that's the beauty of this chapter, is that we're just going to keep trying. And if we're not making a difference on the precise tree or branch at a certain moment that we want to be, walk over to another tree. It is a very large vineyard. And I think this is a good friend of mine, Joseph Grenny, talks about this frequently, and he calls it the nethermost principle based on this chapter. And I think that term for it is brilliant because, he says, if you can't make the difference right there, go somewhere else, go to the nethermost part of the vineyard, and trust that somebody else is going to come and make a difference for your little tree or your branch that needs it right now. And I thought that was something that Sister Dennis brought up in her women's conference talk that was really comforting on this. She pointed out that the Lord would put people in their path, and the Lord knows what experiences will help them. And the truth is, I think every parent knows sometimes we aren't the one to be able to make the difference. We have to let the bonus mom or the bonus dad step in and do that work, and we kind of need to get out of the way. And for me, that doesn't make me feel bad. That makes me so incredibly grateful for the bonus moms and dads who are making the impact right there. And, they're just looking for that magical combination of words, and maybe I don't have it, but somebody else will be led to say the right thing and will touch that child's heart. So I've seen that so many times. I mean, in the last several years, it is stunning to me how often my daughter will reach out and say, "You'll never believe what happened." And I kind of brace myself and think, I'm going to believe it. I'm actually going to believe it. I think I'm about to hear a miracle story. And we get those a lot.
And you get those.
Yeah.
Somebody that's touched her and helped her on her path.
Yeah, and it's really, it's so comforting. The Lord's in charge. He's got it. It's all going to be okay.
There's a quote, I'm familiar with it. I don't know how common it is. I don't know how many people are familiar with it. But it's stunning. It brings such peace. Will you share that quote with us?
Sure, yes. This is a statement that Orson F. Whitney, who was an early apostle in mid to late 1800s, shared, citing Joseph Smith, and he says, "Sooner or later, they will feel the tentacles of divine providence reaching out after them and drawing them back to the fold." And then he goes on to say, "Hope on, trust on." And I know there has been some question about the provenance of that statement and everything, but the Ensign published it a few years ago in kind of a deep dive into this topic. And they followed it up with this statement from Elder David A. Bednar, likened the spiritual power of those tentacles to beckoning. And I just love that image. I mean, it's almost like this cartoon creature, right? And the tentacles are just drawing them in and beckoning. And for me, I really believe that that's true, that there's enough time for my loved one to have enough experiences that eventually the scale will begin to tip. And they'll start to recognize, oh, there's something bigger at work here. That maybe I haven't looked at the huge picture, or maybe I just am going to reframe it. I mean, that's not to say that our loved ones who choose different paths and things aren't looking at big picture things. I know they are. My daughter is a very, very deep thinker. And I even often I kind of think of her as beating her own new path. She's kind of a trailblazer type, and she loves adventure like that. But I notice her path intersects with mine frequently, all the time. And when it's not intersecting...
Do you think she realizes that?
I think she probably does.
Yeah.
I think she does. We've learned to use some different vocabulary that I think she's more comfortable with, but I think we both understand that we're saying the same thing. We'll just talk about it a little differently as we need to. But, even when it's not actively intersecting with mine, it's parallel to mine. And I can reach out and hold her hand on it. It's just not as maybe close as some of my other children or other loved ones, but that's okay. She teaches me so much through it. It's mind-boggling to us how much we learn because of her unique perspective, and truly, we are all better for it.
I bet you guys have great conversations at your house. I want to be a fly on the wall.
Well, I think they usually happen in the car. It feels like those deep conversations happen while we're driving or in a phone call when she calls to tell me about something amazing that, some coincidence that happened that I might interpret a little bit differently. But it is a huge blessing to all of us. And I have 4 children, and 2 of them are married, so those families are expanding. And the language that we've chosen to adopt and that really resonates with all of us is that we're not complete with anybody missing. We want everybody as part of our experience and story. And I think on that point, too, one of the things that does make this an uncomfortable situation for so many families who are deep into the culture of the church is this idea about no empty chairs at the table, right? That's something we've all heard. Everybody throws that idea.
Well, you've seen the vinyl lettering even on somebody's wall.
Exactly. And I see the reason for that. But I would propose there are lots of different ways that we might see that a bit differently. My personal favorite is that I don't need everybody to come to my table. I can actually go to them. And I like to envision breaking apart all my kitchen chairs and repurposing them into a picnic basket and a cornhole game that we're going to take with us or whatever, and go to the one who's missing and needs it. They don't necessarily need to come to me. I can go to them. And for us, that really works for us, literally and figuratively. My children live all over the country, and we say, okay, now we're gathering in this place, and let's do what she wants to do this time, or let's do what he wants to do this time. And that works. Nobody says it has to be around your kitchen table.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
You've given us some great doctrine that we can trust in. And then there's this practical aspect of, studying and really understanding the doctrine, and then just we living day to day with this. Yeah. And you've gathered some insights, some lessons that have helped you. And I think they're so good. And I think they can even take away, sometimes we don't even know how to move forward. And I think there's some great tips here. Your first is to play the long game.
Yes.
You kind of mentioned this earlier, which can be hard for our mortal brains that like to think short term.
Yes.
So what does this look like to play the long game?
Well, for us, I think I can can explain what happened in our story that this became hugely pertinent. When our daughter let us know, and it was like a classic, like, sit down at the kitchen table, Mom and Dad, I have something to tell you, right? That episode, she was midway through her junior year in high school. So as my husband and I absorbed what she was telling us, and she was our caboose, so all the older ones had left, it's just the three of us, which is a whole other episode worth having because that's hard on the caboose too. But as we really thought about it, we thought, wow, like what's our play here? What's our strategy? Because if we play a short game and we're looking at like a 14-month runway till she leaves home, we're taking a major risk if we are pushing away at that point. We actually need to make the leap to the long game because we don't have years to work on this with her under our home. We just have this little window to make it crystal clear that we love her no matter what. And then we're going to keep working on it for years to come. But if we lose access to her, we will lose influence. So that was a non-option.
So were you able to, in that moment when she's sitting at the table across from you, did that thought come to your mind then?
No.
Or this developed over time?
I think it developed over, say, weeks and months for sure. But we definitely could tell she then wanted to have a little period of testing to see if we really meant what we said, that we loved her no matter what. And of course, in her framing, she was looking at it as, which do you love more, the church or me? I think you love the church more than me. And we were trying to say, no, that's not a fair comparison. We love you completely, and we also love the gospel of Jesus Christ and the way that we choose to live it. But there was this testing period, and we wanted her to kind of hustle through the tests so we could get on with it because the testing period is painful. And I think so many of us go through that, especially if it's a teenager that's choosing this. But in our experience, I have a sister who, as a young adult, had stepped away and chosen some different routes, who now, 40 years later, really, and through the whole 40 years, she's one of my favorite people on the planet. Like, she's stellar. She is such an outstanding human. And our extended family has learned unbelievable amounts from her. In some ways, she's like the goodness leader of our family. She is just goodness. And part of it is because she's had a hard path and has learned compassion through her own experiences. And so she is so compassionate. And I think her example really influenced how our little family saw that, oh, we have years to go on this. This isn't something to resolve in a few weeks or a few months. It's fine if it takes years. We'll get there and we'll all be better for the experience. And that has absolutely been true. We have learned so much better how to love well through both my sister, my daughter, everyone else that we learn from. We're all playing a long game.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to have a short game mentality, I don't think. But it is different if we're talking about a small child living under your house. And, it was unique to us because we didn't have younger children at home. I have lots of friends going through similar experiences, and they say, well, my younger kids are watching.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful I didn't have to wrestle through those challenges. I can see that that's complicated and that's extra hard. But every individual is unique and worth loving, and I really trust that you can figure out the path through.
Can we go back to something you said? Because I've heard this often, and it's that question the person who's choosing a different path has of like, I want to see, do you love the church more than you love me? Yeah. What is it about our culture that somebody even has that thought?
Is it perfectionism? Is it competitiveness? I don't know.
Maybe so.
Because the crazy thing is, and I think, and maybe my parents had instilled this idea in me when we had gone through things with my sister, or we had just brainstormed this as a large family, but we realized I'm able to love you so totally and completely no matter what because of the gospel of Jesus Christ and how that helps me understand love. I'm better because I'm living that way, and you will and you have reaped the benefits and fruits and blessings of that. And I hope eventually you'll recognize that they're really one and the same. Love is love, right?
Yeah.
And perfect Christ-like love blesses every relationship. It should. It shouldn't be about later down the road into the distant eternities. This is a piece of eternity. It should bless me and my family and every human I come in contact with instantly because I choose to love like Jesus. And I think that in our experience, she would agree that that's actually what we've been working to show her. I think with teenagers, a common issue that they face is that they have such an unbelievably specific sort of hypocrisy radar, right? And it can really be difficult for them to reconcile the hypocrisy that they see in members of the church. And when we're older, we work on that. Still, as we're older, that can be difficult too, but we know prophets aren't perfect, all of that sort of thing. And I'm not even talking prophets, neighbors or bishops' children or whatever, right? And in our case, that was complicated. And I think that did play a part in her choosing to take some different steps. And in a way, based on her understanding of integrity, I understand why she felt that way. I really can be compassionate to why she thought that. And it just behooves us now to prove to her through the coming years that while none of us are perfect, we really can love like our perfect Savior.
Yeah, she was then waiting to see. I mean, if that's what she's feeling is the hypocrisy, and we all have seen that.
Yes.
Then she's waiting to see, how are my parents? I mean,
yes.
Are they part of that hypocrisy too?
Yes. And isn't it interesting on that point? We often say, I personally don't say it typically because I don't love this analogy, but we might hear people say life is a test. And I think the default of that is, oh, God's going to test me. Well, first of all, what about the prove me now herewith scripture? Maybe we are actually being invited to test God like our daughter was testing us, right? And maybe we're entitled to test each other a little bit. And in that regard, she's just been such a blessing to us. I just can't tell you, I can't express enough how we adore her through what we've learned together and how she's nudged us to be better followers and disciples of Jesus Christ. Really, we owe her eternally for what she's been able to help us with.
Or how she's tested you.
Yeah, and you have to wonder if down the road, do we all get to finally have a final family meeting when we're all on the other side and we learn that she was the family superstar? She was willing to accept this challenge to help the rest of us learn to love better? I don't doubt that might happen. I've always thought that about my sister as well. I feel like a lot of families have one really special soul that's going to take a hard hit in mortality with some hard things, but ultimately it's a gift to lift
for everybody else to learn. Yeah. This is something I want to learn more about. You've talked about loving. And one of your tips is that we can lean into the things that they are doing well. We can love them. And I just want to share, we're going to put this in our show notes, but you wrote an article for LDS Living magazine that we also published an article online, and you said something really profound. You said, our relationship with Christ can transform our capacity to listen. Learning to listen well can deepen our spiritual rootedness with God and our loved ones. I feel like that this is something that you've learned to do. You've learned to really love your daughter and to lean into who she is and the things that she does well. What does this look like in your relationship with her? What are some of those things that you found helpful?
Well, I don't think it's just listening, but also looking. And for me personally, I've really tried to make a conscious effort to see Christ-like attributes and then label them and call them out. I don't always call them Christ-like attributes to her, but I might say, oh, your generosity is phenomenal. I learned so much from watching how you share with your friends and the people around you. You are a gift. You bless every life because of your generosity, right? Like that translates just great into her 22-year-old mind. And it's not preaching. It's a compliment.
It's a compliment.
Right? And so I think finding the moments to compliment and listening to the degree as she's telling me stories, like say with commitment, say with who she's dating or boyfriend, to point out, oh, I love how committed you are to each other. Because, right, I mean, that's something I think a lot of parents really worry about is, oh, what happens in the dating world? Like, we're going to get dangerous and scary there. Well, we just praise monogamy and commitment. That's
we
huge.
value that, and so praise that.
Totally, so praise that. Right? Everything's relative anyway. It's not like I'm perfect at any of these Christ-like attributes. So we're all just on a spectrum trying to march forward and get a little better all the time. And clearly, she's doing that. All these people that we love are doing it. And I think a lot of times in our culture, those who choose to do it a little differently are extra tuned in to wanting to give evidence that they can still exhibit all these beautiful values and characteristics in all the different ways they choose to live. And they can. They absolutely can. And it's great to notice it and point it out.
One of the other things I know that you try to do is show your daughter, show somebody else God's hand in their life and in your life.
Yes.
So what does that look like?
Oh, well, here's a fun little example that happened over the summer. Her car was broken into, and unfortunately, she had a lot of things stolen. She had a new laptop in there that was just like, oh, no, not the laptop. And when she was able, about a day later, to figure out how to trace where that laptop was, she had been on a research study, so she was now hours away from where she had been, and she could see that it was on the side of the road. And she called in a panic and she said, if I don't get some piece of that laptop back, the Apple Care won't cover it, right? Like it was this funny, crazy. I thought, oh my word, what are we going to do? And even if I'd hopped on a plane, I couldn't have been there in time to precede a car running over it or something like that. And she couldn't get there that fast either because she would have had to drive several hours. And I told her, I said, is it okay with you if I work some mom magic here? Because I'm pretty sure I can find a way to get our hands on that laptop. And she just laughed and she said, no, that mom, and then she said, wait, are you going to call Bishop? I said, maybe. I don't know, but I think I can figure it out. This is the sort of things moms do. And she said, you have my permission to do whatever it takes. I just need a piece of that laptop back. And so I got on the phone and I started doing all these things. And as luck would have it, I actually was not able to get in touch with any member of the church, which was, in fact, the first thing I thought I could do. And I ended up finding someone working at a store. And it's a long story, but I found this woman and she was willing to have her nephew go and look for it. I think she didn't quite trust that this was even a legitimate request I was making. And so she was sending her young adult nephew. And sure enough, he went out. And with my daughter on the phone with him and her looking at her tracker thing or whatever on her phone, he was able to find the laptop. And then he took it back to his aunt, and then she drove up the next day to get it from the aunt. And it ended up being the sweetest experience that ends with them hugging and saying they're going to get in touch again. And next time I'm in town, I'm going to come visit you and all of this. And then the aunt reaches out to me and says, I can't believe what a precious daughter you have. And anyway, it was just great to be able to point out after, look at that miracle. And of course, she saw it 100% as a miracle. So just as simple, the little example, but.
Oh, that is
those
such
things happen.
A great example.
Right? It happens.
Mom magic and divine help.
Yes.
I love that. I wonder if it's easy to feel paralyzed when, you had the conversation with your daughter. She comes to you and your husband, and it would seem like it would be easy to feel paralyzed by that and not know what to do. Mm-hmm. But so I'm intrigued by your next suggestion, which is to keep doing something. Yeah. What does that look like?
Well, I absolutely live by the motto in every space of my life that anything is better than nothing. And so I think keeping the camaraderie going, acting like it's all good. I don't need to cry about this every time you walk in the room. Like, let's go to lunch. Let's go take a walk. Let's go shopping. Let's go play a game or something. Keep the normalcy there to give evidence that you haven't just devastated me. I'm not now going to be perpetually disappointed in you. Because I think that is something that they tend to fear. And at the beginning, she would often say, I know you're disappointed with me. Mm. And we would say, sweetie, we're working through these things just like you are, and we adore you and we love you. We'll get through it. Don't worry. We'll figure it out. And it was so calming. I could tell, even though she was being defensive at first and pushing back a bit, it was calming to her to see that we were calm.
Did you feel that calm?
No, not inside.
Not inside. You're having the dialogue.
But I mean, it took practice. It took practice. And I think truly for the first month or two, I didn't talk about it with anybody else, and I mostly stayed home. And when she wasn't home, sometimes I was home crying about it. But then when she got home, I was committed to not looking like I'd been crying about it. And after a while, I started to talk a little bit more openly. And it's a funny thing, but when you practice saying things out loud, it gets easier to say. Mm. And it was within a few more months that I was able to talk really comfortably about it. And if someone would bring up a similar story that was devastating them, I'd say, oh, we have that happening in our family. You know what? It really is going to be okay. You'll get through this. You can do this. But love. Keep loving. Love more, not less.
Keep loving. The next thing that I think you've identified, and again, you hit on this a little earlier, but I'd love to go a little deeper. Elder Rasband said so beautifully, words matter. Mm-hmm. And you've identified some important shifts that we could make in our terminology, not just in our families, but I think even in our congregations, in our Sunday school classes, because there's a couple of words we often use. Yeah. We say that somebody has strayed, or they're lost, or they've left. And you say those can be hurtful. What are some just suggestions that you have for talking about this?
Yeah, I do think the words really, really do matter. Stray, in my opinion, is a horrible word because it reminds me of a stray cat that's unwanted, unloved, unrecognized, a burden, a nuisance, right? So let's just abolish that
I've
language.
Never thought of that. That does remind you of a stray.
Right?
Yes.
I just think it's an unhelpful term. And then you think about left, and sometimes I think, wait, like, did we let go? Maybe they didn't leave so much as we let go of them. So we probably have some complicity in this. And it's such a complicated equation. Mortality is so phenomenally complicated. It's hard to really say anybody has 100% agency given all the ways that our lives interweave and get tangled, frankly, not even beautifully woven, but tangled, right? And so I also think about those spikes when you're returning a rental car, right? When it's like, don't back up, you're going to get torn up. And sometimes I think we want to be so welcoming and invite everybody in, but are we subtly giving this message that, but if you leave, you're going to be shredded, right? Like, we need to remove those barriers to exit and reentry. And I think that is really valuable. And I can't tell you how many times I have been grateful for members of our neighborhood or home ward community who see her, my daughter, if she comes, like, say, to her friend's missionary homecoming or to Christmas Sunday with us, which, of course, we're thrilled when she wants to do that. We just want to be with her as much as we can. So that's great. But when they see her and don't say something like, oh, we're so glad you're here, right? Like, she knows she gets that, right? She knows the underlying message. She grew up in this church. She gets that. But instead, oh, look at you. I've been thinking about you. How are you? Just casual. And let it be just a smooth reentry and then an exit again and an entry again. Whatever. We don't need to we
don't need to go over the
flashing
top.
lights.
Right?
Right? So I think that's really valuable. And then the idea of the wanderer, I do sometimes default to kind of saying, well, she's kind of our wanderer, our adventurer is my preference over wanderer. But I do love the phrase in our beloved hymn, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, we are all prone to wander, as long as we recognize that we too are wandering. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a safe one. But like I said, we talk about her beating her own path, finding a unique way. But even if you spread out in the old days a huge map, right, there are a million ways to get from point A to point B. Even on your phone, you take a wrong turn and redirecting, right? It's like 5 seconds before there's a new way for you to go. I think that's a helpful metaphor for us to appreciate that there are lots and lots of paths, and they're all learning paths. They all have learning involved and teaching opportunities too.
Have you, as women, we need each other. It's having conversations like this that I think are helpful and that elevate the conversation. What have you learned about sharing? Did you share? You said you didn't for the first 2 months, but did you eventually open up and share?
Eventually, I really did start to open up about it because I think it doesn't do anybody any favors to hide this and present this perfect look. I mean, that's the hypocrisy as well, right? That sometimes happens in our culture. And I think to let people see you're not alone in this, let's lean on each other, especially women. We just really gain so much strength as we lean on each other. And to be able to share just simple ideas. I mean, one of my closest friends said frequently, just got to stay by the tree and look happy. Like, don't stand there crying, look happy. And that got me through so many rough little patches, right? So I think everyone in their unique experiences, and every individual is different, every story is unique, everybody learns something. And just think if we could compile all of our thoughts and what we've learned, we could actually make a fabulous sort of cheat sheet of ways to get through the hard moments, because they still come. We still have hard moments, and I don't know the right thing.
Why do we feel like we need to hide it?
Well, because I think we're
embarrassed. It's a reflection of.
I think we've bred perfectionism into our culture to a really toxic degree. I don't think I'm the first to say that. I think we've even heard that over the pulpit, right? I think it's so valuable to be vulnerable and authentic and let people see, I love the Lord and am trying my best, but I'm not doing it perfectly. And look, I mean, families are such an amazing example of this, because if you know a family well and you see each child having a different result from arguably the same parenting, they grew up in the same house with the same mother and father, right? It's so comforting to realize this is universal. It's agency, right? It's all agency. And look through the scriptures. Every single family story in the scriptures shows different results because of agency. And that's mortality. That's the way it goes. So I do think it helps to reveal openly, comfortably, not like a humble brag, right? Like no one likes that, but just acknowledge, oh yeah, we have that too. Like I used to kind of joke that it would be fun to have a Mothers of Tattooed Children club. We could call it the MTC.
That'd be fun,
right? But that, like, I mean, that's not even funny. Like tattoos are fine. Lots of people have tattoos. I have truly learned, who cares? I don't have a problem with them. I mean, I've seen a few on my beloved daughter that they're kind of cute. I can live with that, right? It's fine.
Yeah.
And so I think getting more comfortable with that, if the goal is less judgment, then these sorts of discussions are phenomenally helpful. They help us realize, oh yeah, we don't need to be judging anyone.
And speaking of cheat sheets, you have compiled a list of amazing quotes and teachings, and you've got some book recommendations, and we're going to share those in the show notes and in our Magnify newsletter, and we'll also include links online because they're so good. You're just giving us this whole guide, and it's going to be amazing.
And wouldn't it be great too if everyone would add their thoughts in Instagram of little thoughts of what's worked for you. What's a talking point that's worked for you? What's a phrase that is calming to you and your loved one? I mean, there's a lot of shared wisdom among
That's
us
a great question.
sisters.
And amongst us Magnify sisters. And then when we have this conversation together, that's when we feel the strength. I love that idea. I want to just share one of the quotes that you offered up. It's by Madeleine L'Engle, an American writer who was a devout Christian. She said, "We do not draw people to Christ by loudly discrediting what they believe, by telling them how wrong they are and how right we are, but by showing them a light that is so lovely that they want with all of their hearts to know the source of it." And this is a beautiful thought. When I read this quote, I thought, I want to be this kind of woman, a woman who shows a light that is so lovely that people want to know the source of it. And the thoughts that you've shared with us today, I think they're going to help us do that. I think they're going to bring women peace. And they're going to help us, each of us, be better disciples of Jesus Christ. So, Mindy, thank you. We're just so thrilled to have had this conversation with you. Thank you.
It's an important conversation. Thanks for letting me share some thoughts.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of Magnify. As Michelle mentioned, you can now find a PDF of quotes and resources that she has studied out, and they'll be in our show notes right now. Or head to @Magnify Community on Instagram, where we will link the PDF in our stories this week. We know this is a topic dear to so many women in our community, so please share this episode with your friends and family. And we'd love to hear what you've been studying. Perhaps you're going through something similar to what was shared today. So head over to our Instagram, and this week we'll have a post for you to comment and share some of those thoughts. We know we're better when we support one another together, and we're so glad that you're part of our community. And it's not too late for you to register for St. George or Salt Lake City's Lift Up Your Heart events. As a listener, you get a special podcast code that you can enter at checkout, PODCAST10 at checkout, and that's all linked in our show notes. Thanks again for being here, and we'll see you next week.